Hi everyone, we are David Valdepeñas, Maider Chave and Irene Muñoz, and we are going to talk you about Isaac Newton.
First of all, we are going to explain the historical context.
In the 17th century, to these years of the Revolution, Civil War, dictatorship, Restoration, religious dispute, general disorder, and a terrible plague called the bubonic plague, that only in London finished with more than 68,000 lives. In the 1665, they closed the schools of the old university and dispersed his students around the country. In the end of the century, England turned into the first commercial and capitalist power of the world.
In the 18th century, it's also called as Age of Enlightenment due to the fact that during the same was invented the intellectual movement known like Illustration, that is a cultural movement characterized by the reaffirmation of the power of the human reason in front of the faith and superstition. In 1707, England and Scotland joined from the United Kingdom. From these moments, the King of United Kingdom will also be the King of Ireland.
Isaac Newton was born in England on the 25th of December of 1642, year of the death of Galileo, some months after the death of his father. Isaac Newton was reared by his grandmother in his familiar farm of Woolsthorpe. He was not a prodigy boy. It was born in a family of farmers. He had health problems and difficulties in the studies, and he was weak physically. He did not play with the boys of his age. He wrote poetry, drew, and built toys.
When he was 3 years old, his mother went back to marry again and left him with his grandmother. When he was 11, as a result of the death of the hated stepfather, her mother returned to the farm with other 3 children. He assisted to the school during 5 years more, only distinguishing for getting revenge on a boy who killed him. After fighting with the boy who pushed his face on the church wall, Newton decided to put him in evidence to his opponent in the academic appearance. What did raise him to be the penultimate of the class to be the first.
When he was 14, his mother took him out of the school to be the responsible for the familiar farm. Seeing that he did not like being a farmer and he preferred the books and the creation of small things like mill of wind in miniature or a clock of water that would take several years, his uncle convinced his mother so that Newton continued with his studies. He finished the studies in primary school at Grantham.
Afterwards, in 1661, got into the Trinity College of the University of Cambridge, where he studied mathematics, with a teacher called Isaac Barrow, the one who influenced in his life for recognizing him like a genius and convinced him to publish his discoveries. Apart from this, Barrow renounced to his job and transferred to Newton. He received his title of bachelor in 1665 and designated him a scholar in Trinity College in 1667. From 1668, he was professor. Newton dedicated his life to the study and investigation of the last advance in mathematics and natural philosophy.
The last years of his life were cast a shadow over the miserable controversy with Leibniz because of the priority of the invention of the new analysis. Mutual indictments of plagiarism, secret disclaims of cryptograms, anonymous letters, affirmation of the subjective of friends, and adherents of the two giants confronted, self-evident carelessness and efforts deployed by the conciliatory to approximate to the adverse class, only finished with the death of the Leibniz in the 1716. He suffered from renal problems, of which he died the night of the 31 of March in the year 1727. It was buried in the Abbey of Westminster next to the big men of England. He was respected during all his life more than any other scientific, and proof of this were the diverse churches of honored him. In the 1689, it was chosen member of the Parliament. In the 1696, he was chosen as the safekeeper of the House of the Coin. In the 1703, they designated him president of the Royal Society, and finally, in the 1705, he received the title of Sir and Hans of the Anna Queen. Now, we are going to explain you the scientific relationships. In the 1687, Newton published his mathematical principles of the natural philosophy, edited 22 years after the micrography of Hooke, which describes the laws of the movement that are the inertia, the force, and the action and reaction, and also the law of the gravity.
It is said that Robert Hooke had formulated before Newton many of the foundations of the theory of the gravitation. The work of Hooke also stimulated the investigations of Newton on the nature of the light. Unfortunately, the disputes in matter of optics and gravitation broke the relationships between both men. Newton arrived to the extreme to delete from his mathematical principles all reference to Hooke. A specialist ensures that he also tried to erase of the registers the contributions that Hooke has done to the science. Besides the instruments of Hooke, good part of his essays and his only authentic portrait were banished once that Newton turned into the president of the Royal Society. As a consequence of the previous, the fame of Hooke fell in the forget, a forget that it would last more than 2 centuries, to the point that nowadays we don't even know where is his tomb.
Personal relationships. Isaac Newton had a very few friends, and he had problems with them because of his personality and a possible psychotical crisis that he suffered. In this part, we will see those who keep relations in personal level as professional level with our scientists. Isaac Barrow was his teacher of math, who gave his place to Newton and influenced him by recognizing him as a genius. Leibniz had a cordial relation of respect with Newton. He shared aspects of calculation of Newton. His relationship with Leibniz finished when a friend sent a letter to Newton telling his scientist has authorized of his calculation in Germany. Edmund Halley discovered for the first time how to calculate the orbit of a planet. He encouraged Newton to write Principia Mathematica. Probably if it had not encouraged him, Newton never would have written it, since he was not interested in publications. We attribute to John Wallis the modern calculation, or at least many of their aspects. He was the person who sent Newton the letter about Leibniz.
His uncle was very important in Newton's life, as he convinced his mother to take him back to the school because he saw that Newton was very intelligent. When the small Isaac had 3 years, his mother contracted arranged marriage with a reverend called Barnabas Smith, the rector of North Witham, which had consequences in the development of Newton's personality. Hannah, his mother, moved to the house of his new husband, and his son stayed in Waltham with his maternal mother because of the shyness changed into a competitive spirit that carried him to be the first of the class as a result of a fight with a maid.
According to his publications, Newton obtained a chair in his university, and was during this period when he drafted his first systematic exhibitions of the infinitesimal calculation, which would go out to the light years later. All this drove him to formulate a theory on the corpuscular nature of the light, and designed in 1668 the first telescope of reflector, that belongs to the type of telescope which nowadays is used in observatories. In February of 1672, Newton gave the step to present to the Royal Society his first communication on this subject. Few days after, the Society chose him as one of his members, because of the construction of a reflection telescope. Newton was able to show that the white light was a mix of rays of different colors, each one with a different rangeability, when crossing an optical prism. The publication of that discovery, however, had an immediately and exhaustive critical consequence.
The book where this theory was exposed had several critics by the most part of the contemporary scientists, between them Robert Hooke and Christian Huygens, those who sustained different ideas defending a wave nature of the light. This controversy determined Newton renounced to publish a thread that contained the result of his investigations. In fact, it was not until 1703 when he publishes his most important work on optics, in which are developed all his ideas. The big work of Newton culminated the scientific revolution initiated by Nicolas Copernicus and inaugurated a period of confidence without limits in the reason extensive to all the fields of the knowledge.
Now we're going to talk about religion. Newton was deeply religious all his life. Sons of parents Puritan dedicated more time to study of the Bible than to the science. Newton only believed in a unique God, Father God. He was against Trinity. From what he can understand why he chose to sign his most secret alchemical handwriting with the name Jehovah Sanctus Unus, Jehovah unique God. He related all his theology studies with the alchemical ones. His Trinitarian ideology caused him problems, as he studied in the Trinity College, where he was forced to follow the Trinitarian doctrine. Newton traveled to London to ask the King Charles II to let him not to take the Holy Orders, and his desire was granted. When he came back to Cambridge, he started to send letters to John Locke. When Newton trusted him, so he told his opinion about the Trinity, and Locke persuaded him to continue with the theological streaks.
One of Newton's best-known theological works are an historical account of two notable corruptions of scriptures, chronology of ancient kingdom attended, and observation upon the prophecies. Newton did several calculations about the day of the final judge, reaching to the conclusion that this day wouldn't come until 2060.
Regarding the philosophy, one of the main reasons for the success of Newton's natural philosophy was his role on developing a natural and valuable theology. Although in the first edition of the Principia there was no sign of God, in the second one Newton introduced a general scholio in which he argued explicitly the relationship between God and the creation.
Newton's obsession with the script's interpretation was underestimated for a time and embarrassing. However, its value for an educated Newton's comprehension now is recognized and stimulates a lot of new business between specialists.
Well, now let's reflect on a little bit. Newton took the charge of his education when, after fighting with a boy of his class who pushed his face on a church wall, Newton decided to put on evidence to his opponent in the academic aspect. What he did, rising to be the penultimate of the school to be the first. Later, his mother took Isaac out of the school, so that he take charge of the family farm. But he did not like working there. He preferred being between books. However, William Iscoe, his mother's brother, recognized the intelligence of Newton and insisted on sending Newton back to school to prepare him for the university. Mr. Stokes, his teacher, also persuaded his mother and offered to pay the fees to enter the school. Since this, Newton returned to school. A similar situation nowadays is when a father or mother force their child to continue in their familiar business or make him study the same career as his relatives, and he isn't interested in it. It is also a similar problem as when somebody that don't work because of lack of motivation and interest, but when he finds a job or career that interests him, he takes it seriously and he works very hard and finally achieves his goals and maybe become a genius.
Newton received the call when Isaac Barrow, his math teacher, called him genius. Because of this, he decided to dedicate to the science. Before knowing Barrow, he wasn't sure what he wanted to do in life. It was also thanks to his uncle that was the one who convinced his mother to return to school. Actually, when people don't trust you, you need to trust yourself. But when somebody realizes that you're worth it and tells it to you, you become aware of your potential and start doing everything on your hands to achieve your objectives and become through your dreams.
Newton's aim is to know, which he resumes in one sentence. What we know is a drop of water and what we ignore is the ocean. This means that our knowledge is very little compared with the unknown, since we learn lots of new things daily. Nowadays, people don't have so many curiosity like in the previous centuries. The great majority don't study to know, only to have a good work in the future and to earn money to maintain their family. It's not clear if it was first the scientific or the humanistic preoccupation, because he tried to resolve his scientific doubts with the theology. In these days, not only the citizens, but also the governments are more preoccupied about the politics and the economy than about the scientific advance, so this is why they don't give such money for the experimentations.
The strange situation could be when Newton was abandoned with his grandmother by his mother when she married his stepfather. Nowadays, when some parents get divorced, some of them doesn't care of their children anymore, or those parents that fight all the time in front of their children, that can cause depression, emotional issues, or resentment against his father or other people on the child. This is the end of our work. Thank you for your attention and hope you like it.
This video was made by David Valdepeñas, Irene Muñoz and Maider Echeverri.